Adam Walsh disappeared from a Sears store in Hollywood, Florida in 1981. He had been there with his mother.
Reve said, Adam, I'll be in the lamp department 2 hours over. And he said, Mommy, I know where that is. And 10 minutes later, she returned and he was gone.
2 weeks after he vanished, fishermen found the boy's decapitated head in a canal more than 100 miles away. The rest of his body was never found.
Callahan, you were not even born yet when that awful thing happened to your brother. How did your parents let you know about that?
I grew up always knowing that I had a brother who went missing. We celebrated Adam's life. I knew his birthday and favorite sports and favorite movies. And there wasn't really a time that I can remember where my parents sat me down on the couch and kind of dropped this bomb. It was something that I just always knew about. We celebrated Adam. We celebrated his birthdays, but I always heard them say, if Adam's song is to continue, then we must do the singing. And I watched them channel their emotions, their energy, their anger over what happened to Adam to go on and fight and make sure Adam didn't die in vain, whether that was my father catching wanted fugitives or both of my parents co-founding the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, an organization that's helped recover over 350,000 missing kids, an organization that I actually work at today. That's sort of my day job. So just honored to be able to continue the legacy that they set forth and continue my brother's Adam's legacy as well, too.
And also changing the way law enforcement dealt with missing children cases.
Yes, of course. In 1981, there was no national response mechanism for missing children. Local law enforcement didn't even know what to do. They didn't know how to put a missing persons poster together. In fact, local law enforcement said they didn't even really want to start looking for Adam until 24 to 48 hours after he disappeared because he could be a runaway. Adam was 6 years old at the time and was abducted by a child predator. Now, I have come to learn over the years that oftentimes it does take immense tragedy to create meaningful and impactful change. And out of Adam's tragedy, we were able to change the way we look for missing children through our trainings with law enforcement, to the resources we offer them, to harnessing the power of the public through poster distribution, to providing families resources while they're looking for their loved one and after recovery as well, too. The National Center does some incredible work, and Adam's disappearance really did change the way that we deal with missing and exploited children's cases here in America.
I remember working in Dallas and working on the case of the missing little girl named Amber Hagerman. And so now we have the Amber Alert.
9-year-old Amber Hagerman was riding her bike in the parking lot of a grocery store in Arlington when police say a man in a black truck took her. An elderly man in his backyard saw the suspect grab Amber under her arms.
It's a continuing process to make sure we can wrap our arms around this issue and maybe one day it goes away, right? In Pursuit of the Missing, we talk about children, but missing can be all kinds of people, and that's what you all look at. You're working on a case involving someone in Houston right now.
That's right. At the National Center, we've been covering Ava Baldwin's case. She was abducted by her non-custodial parent, Catherine Baldwin, just prior to a custody hearing. And, those are types of cases that we deal with, non-custodial parental abductions at the National Center quite frequently. And this is a case where a parent who, again, didn't have custody of the child will take the custody or will take that child. And what's so dangerous in those cases, because there's a lot of misconceptions, we hear all the time the public saying, well, the child's with their mother, that isn't that okay? Well, they're robbing that father a lifetime with that child. The father had custody of Ava and now does not get to see her. Oftentimes, these abductions are out of spite for the other parent, not necessarily love for the child. And the State Department has released information about the severity of the mental and physical abuse that occurs oftentimes with children who are abducted. This girl's been on the run for, I think, about 6 years. In fact, we've done an age progression of what she looks like now at the National Center because she's changed so much if she's still alive. And that's what people have to understand. A life on the run is no life for a young girl if she's having to change schools or if she's getting any schooling at all, if she's seeing the doctor, if she's getting any education. These are all things that a life on the run is not a life for a young child.
Yeah, living in the shadows. In Cape Coral, Florida, a 29-year-old single mom, Lauren Divolo, went missing.
Yeah, so with Lauren's case, a lot of suspicion around why and how she disappeared. About a mile from her home was a park called Fort Freedoms Park, a park that she visited regularly. And she disappeared that morning in June, and her purse was located at that park with all of its contents intact, including her wallet with her ID in it. She was seen at a convenience store just the day before applying for a job. All things that would indicate that she wasn't leaving town or had no intention on leaving town or on volition. And so a lot of mystery around that case, and law enforcement has just hit a dead end. They've hit a wall. And so they're looking for the public's help, and hopefully In Pursuit the Missing can shine a white hot spotlight on this case, get that information out to the public in hopes that we get that tip that breaks that case wide open.
A lot of us, when we have children, we breathe a sigh of relief when they get into their teenage years because we figure they can fend for themselves a lot easier. We know with human sex trafficking today, that's not necessarily the case. In Fort Lauderdale, a missing 15-year-old.
Sophie disappeared when she was 15 years old. She snuck out of her father's home where she was living late at night, but never returned. And there were all indications that she was planning to return that night, including a candle that was still burning the next morning when her father went into her bedroom to check on her. She left $300 in cash in her room, her laptop, a cell phone. However, she didn't return home that night. Law enforcement was able to track her another cell phone that she had on her that night, and that led them to the home of a known felon. Sophie's phone pinged at that location at 4 a.m. and then went dead at about 7 a.m. When law enforcement went to that home, when they finally searched that home, there was no evidence to link Sophie to the individual that lived there. But we do know that individual, that known felon, was in contact with a sex trafficker that evening as well. So this absolutely could be a case of a sex trafficking, grooming, and luring situation, but we just don't know. We don't have those answers. And again, that's why we're putting it out there to the public, because I know somebody out there knows Sophie's whereabouts or knows what happened to her that night, and we need that piece of information. Somebody out there has the key that unlocks the door to justice with the Sophia Reader case, and we're looking for that person to come forward.
We just talked about 3 specific cases. How many missing people are there out there, let's say, just in America?
Well, that's a question I can't answer, because not every missing persons case is ever reported, even to law enforcement. At the National Center, we're working on anywhere between 20 and 30 missing persons cases at any one time. I believe last year, the FBI released a statement, some figures of over 460,000 missing persons cases reported to law enforcement. But there's some caveats to that number. There's, instances where a child may have just been next door and they were safe the whole time, but they were reported missing, but nothing really was missed. However, at the National Center, we're dealing with our most serious cases. And then, like I said, that can be anywhere between 20 and 30 of the most crucial and critical missing children's cases here in the U.S.
We know that the outcome many times might not be good, but as you've seen firsthand, how important is it for loved ones, friends, family to simply have some form of closure?
Right, and to keep hope alive as well too during the search. We've seen way too many long-term recoveries, whether it's J.C. Dugard, Elizabeth Smart. We've seen way too many long-term recoveries to ever give up hope on any one of our cases. And while a recovery of that individual might not provide closure, nothing will bring back a deceased loved one. It will provide answers. And that's what many of these families really and truly are looking for. They're looking for answers. My brother Adam, when he went missing, it was 2 weeks until his remains were discovered. The worst news my parents could ever get. But they always said the 2 weeks and the not knowing, that was the hardest part. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to provide families with answers. And that's what we're hoping for with this series, In Pursuit of the Missing.